Transitions radio talk show with yours truly, Coach Latoya, here on WDRB Media, the voice of the community. I am so excited, y'all. Happy Saturday. I hope that your June month has gotten kicked off with a great start, ready for the summer. We've had some really cool guests here over the last couple of weeks, so definitely want to take a moment to say thank you to those guests for stopping by the Life Transitions radio talk show. And I just want to say thanks to my listeners. I so appreciate all of you. I get all of your texts, your phone calls, your emails about the guests. And so I'm definitely appreciative of your support every week, listening right here on WDRB Media, Saturdays, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, y'all. So thank you again. I am excited today. I've met a new friend here, Andres, and so he is a certified life and relationship international coach, y'all. I want to tell you, I'm so excited to get into his story because he was a East Coaster out in DC. He made his way to LA, y'all. We'll talk about some of the things he was doing in LA and Hollywood and on TV. He's an actor. But, he took his calling to coaching through a spinal cord injury, just, crazy injury that he recovered from and is a survivor of. And so we're going to jump into this conversation. So if you're out there listening and you've gone through, something traumatic from an injury to just anything that's going to really bring you down. It could be in a state of depression even, right? That's just going to flip your life upside down. I challenge you today to just listen in to his story. I think you can learn a lot from it. And I think he's definitely gonna inspire a lot of us today. So help me welcome Mr. Andres Perez to the Life Transitions radio talk show. Thank you, Andres.
Latoya, thank you for having me. I really appreciate, again, this opportunity. I love what you do and what you do and just bringing the attention and spotlights on different stories, different transitions. So again, very blessed to be here.
Thank you. So tell us, you're in DC, right? And
yes.
How did you make your way to LA? How did you make your way to California?
That's quite an interesting story. So I was in DC, born in Georgetown, raised in Fairfax, Virginia, and kind of going into like that government work where I'm interning for the government during my high school. My father worked for politics all his majority of his life before he passed. And it was my senior year of high school after my father's passing to cancer, prostate cancer. Um, that was probably one of my first transitional tests in life. Whereas I'm filling out college essays to trying to figure out who I am, I enrolled into the Marines to like the highest point of maybe that last signature, and I was still feeling like, what is me? What am I? I'm just kind of doing things, looking for structure or looking for an escape route. And one day, driving home from interning at the government at OPM, Office of Personal Management, I heard a radio ad for new faces, new talent. Come check it out for acting the DC Convention Center. And I've always had a fascination for like movie making and films, like old school movies. Not necessarily I love current, but old school were things I kind of fell in love with during film study in high school. And I don't know what came out of me or what, but I was like, I'm gonna go check that out.
Yeah.
And so I did the whole radio registration, paid a little fee, memorized a couple of monologues. I had like a Polaroid picture headshot that my sister took with like my Hotmail at the time and just my phone number, not even cell number, house number.
Yeah.
And I'm a little older than I look, let's just say. So yeah, 80s baby. And it became like I got some great feedback. I was working as like a little part-time hobby job as an actor in New York. Didn't have any experience of it, but I was just very fearless. I transitioned to being fearless after a parental loss was something where I was like, all right, that's the toughest thing that's ever going to happen to me. Your rejection or your no as an audition was like, care less, I'm going to keep on showing up. And that mentality kind of kept this as a hobby / part-time job until I had an opportunity through a networking connection to take it to LA full time. And at the same time, I was eligible to join the union, the Screen Actors Guild. I had management waiting for me there. And then I had a job with some soap opera job that I was working for. And I was only maybe like 2, 3 years into my Virginia start of acting, but it all matched and all fit perfectly where I was like, all right, my transition from like DC family guy, born and raised here, to LA on my own, no family, no friends, just my manager, but my foot's in the door
Yeah.
to see what I can do.
Yeah. So we're gonna come back to the soap opera, because we are all fans of the soap operas. But you talked a little bit about losing your father, and some of the things, the thoughts, just trying to figure out, especially at a young age, right? Is there anything that you can share with our listeners that have lost a parent, especially our younger listeners, and things that they can do if they're just trying to figure out, like, who am I without my mom or my dad?
It's a great question. It's okay to feel lost. It's
Yeah.
okay to feel mad.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to feel sad. Um, After his passing, it did bring my brother, my sister, and my mom closer together than ever, even though we were already kind of close. But he was just we had the same birthday, my dad and I. So
Oh,
we had 17 special July 11th birthdays together, and we were very alike, two cancerous men. Where I was obviously a boy. Um, my uncle said it best, and I always try to live off that, was to remember him how he lived and not how he left.
yeah.
Because he was a very charismatic, loving man. He was like the Godfather, but like in a harmless kind of way where he walks in and you just know, like, all right, it's going to be a great night, classy night, very cultured, conversational moment. Loves to cook, loves the wine, loves to dance, a storyteller. Um, so when you lose a parent at such a young age, what I wanted to do and resonated with what I was doing in the government work, as well as maybe registering for the Marines, because I feel like it's understandable to be fearless, but it's not excusable to be reckless.
Yeah.
And so while you're trying to find your path or your road, my highest suggestion, especially if you're young, is to try to find some structure and try to find some goal-oriented plan, and use all that pain, use all that sadness, that darkness into motivation, inspiration.
Yeah.
And I know that might be kind of ironic saying from like, oh, so how's acting structured? And I was like, well, I created a 2-year plan. I presented a 2-year plan. I had a manager who was very strict and demanding to my commitment to my work ethic. And I was like, if I don't accomplish these goals, I'm coming back.
Yeah.
And so I had a trial, run in the situation with LA, but I was so fearless, so enthusiastic to prove to the world. And I think that in that sense, regardless, even if your relationship wasn't as close with a parent, you still have this stepping up, becoming a man, becoming a woman from a child's point of view, thinking, I could take on anything now, or bring it on. I'm kind of, bulletproof, kind of old now because you just experienced something very traumatic.
Yeah.
And so it's not an excuse to be mean or isolate yourself. It's more
Yeah.
of a power just to rise.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you have a plan or a goal or even travel, find something that really gives you that life again. Because what you're thinking with the grievance, that's going to take a long time.
Mhm.
I'm still grieving. And
Yeah.
so different stages. And
Yeah.
so I think when you lose someone, you feel like you need to process everything at once. And that's just not realistic.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you for sharing that, and being vulnerable and kind of letting us into, some of the feelings that you were having there. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Um, So you're in LA, right? And you're new to the city, you're a new job, a new gig, and it's full time now. So you're kind of doing what you wanted to be doing. You're a part of the union and all of that. How was it those first maybe first couple years there? How was it?
It was well, it's kind of funny. It was quite crazy too, because my first week there, my mom came with me to look for a place.
Okay.
And so this is kind of like, here's a more of an in-depth story to my father and I relationship on following level of like something being symbolic or meaningful or faith. Is that during the week I started work immediately. So we were staying at a hotel in Santa Monica and we were searching areas that she thought that would feel safe because obviously I had never been there, not even for a visit.
Yeah.
And so she comes down to this one final spot that was, close to my work. I seemed like a safe neighborhood away from like the whole party Hollywood scene. And so we go there after my work filming, and we go there, we knock on the door, and there was like this older Argentinian woman, very sweet, very just delicate grandma type. And she's speaking Spanish, and she says, mi nombre es Maria Perez. And my mom's name is Maria Perez-Molina. And so I saw this interaction between these two women. The woman we never even met. It was like a
Yeah.
Craigslist listing. And it was just weird. And she looks at me, and I'm like, are you guys related? What's going on? And obviously not, because my mom's Bolivian and she's Argentinian. And so she turns to me and she's like, you're staying here.
Yep.
That's it. Because that Maria Perez connection just locked up. You're staying here in her spare guest bedroom slash like kind of outside room, outside house. And so she immediately gave me like that motherly feel where she had a garden. She would be cooking me dinners, or was like, would be flexible with a few days late on rent. She just brought a lot of warmth where I knew at the end of the day, my mom and her were talking. How's he
Yeah.
doing? Is he up late? Is he partying too much? What's going on? What's he doing? Tell me. And she obviously, I knew I had another pair of motherly eyes on me, which was
Yeah.
kind of, it felt good, and not gonna lie, because I went there for a purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that later that week when I dropped off my mom at the airport, and again, this is a true story. I'm getting into this a whole book for this because I take her to LAX and she's basically bawling. I'm her youngest and everything. And she was like, I know you're going to do great here because there's something you don't know that no one else knows. And I was like, what's that? She was like, before your father met me, before he worked in the government, he was an actor. And he pursued acting for many years and he was really good at it. And he was always a character. He always had so much like range of emotions. That's because he was an actor. And now is his passion. But in the 60s, those opportunities for Latinos were very limited. So he
Yeah.
focused on his education. But you never knew that. And you always did sports. And after he passed, you just randomly got into this. And now I'm dropping you off in Hollywood with Maria Perez.
Wow.
So
And
she
you
just
didn't
basically,
know this. You didn't know
no
your
one knew
father.
this. No one knew this. My brother, my older sister, no one.
Oh,
And so she basically stopped crying and she stares at me and she's like, you better damn dominate everything you do here because you're going to do it for both of you. You're born for this.
yeah.
And she just storms into the plane. And I'm like looking at the clock, like, what just happened?
Yeah.
What do you mean? And
Wow.
so that Maria Perez landlord comfort, which was
Hmm.
very ironic, and then finding shocking news of something I never knew about my father, gave me a backbone
Yeah. Yeah.
to be as resilient as be, because I knew those first 2 years would define my chances of staying longer and
Yeah.
not making this opportunity up. So
No.
I lived in basically 350 square foot little dorm, and all I would do was study, work, network, film, workshop, class.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so that built a work ethic and a foundation to make me maybe surpass others who've been there before, but maybe kind of take it for granted.
Yeah.
I was at a young age, but I had that, emotional trauma
Hmm.
plus this enlightening moment
Yeah.
and this fearless attitude. Prove it to dad.
Yeah.
You miss him? Show him.
Exactly.
So that
Yeah.
really catapulted my plan to make it again from 1 year to 15 and a half, 16 years. Was all because those first 2 years was, focus on setting that foundation, that work ethic, that routine, that
Mhm.
commitment, that discipline, because the partying and the fun and celebrating, which I love,
Yeah.
will taste and feel better down the road. And it'll
Yeah.
be, and it won't go away. But
Yeah,
you make sure you
absolutely.
approach it now the way you need to for the long haul. And
Yeah,
so
that's a
I'll
lesson
say,
for lots of people and lots of things as well, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
so thank you for sharing that. Man, what a phenomenal story about that first week. I mean, you had not even been there a full week and had these revelations there. So thanks for sharing that. So I want to know, and I'm sure the listeners want to know, how did you get on the soap operas and which soap operas were you on?
I was on Days of Our Lives as Officer Rodriguez, and then I worked on Young and the Restless as Officer Hernandez. I had a very typecasted role, which I didn't mind at all. Everyone's typecasted. And it was more of while before I actually moved to LA, I would make calls and set up meetings and basically interviews on on the phone or email headshots. And that's where my manager knew that I was really committed to not just showing up and what's next. No, you came with opportunities. You created opportunities. You
Yeah,
created open opportunities.
yeah.
And so through her, she kind of, got me in the door to maybe go in for a small one-line role.
Okay.
And one of the main lessons in acting is there's no such thing as a small role, only a small mindset.
Mm,
And
mm.
so my character had like 2 words, three
Yeah,
words, nothing like, thank you, you're welcome, sir, or good evening, sir, something very basic. But she was like, approach anything as everything.
yeah,
And so, being early, having a great attitude, being prepared, not complaining long days,
yeah,
or not worried about other things, phones weren't a big distraction. That kind of led me to coming back again and again
yeah.
and again, where the network goes, that's a professional young man.
Mhm.
And so they want professional people who are talented, not just talented people.
Yeah,
And a lot of people misperceive as Hollywood as, obviously a fame and a look and an attitude, which is okay and great, but that's a dime a dozen.
yeah,
And anytime I had an opportunity to meet someone at the higher level or higher level of success, even role models, they were all hardworking, humbled, approachable people.
yeah. No,
And
that's
so when
good.
I did that, 1, 2 word, 3 words led into like 10 words, and then basically a reoccurring, and then a contract for an under 5 role. And so that led for the first couple of few months of work just to be a part of that NBC network, and
Yeah,
that's in that structure and scheduling of a soap opera where it's like a 9 to 7, it's like a daily job, and it's weekly. And so that really kind of gave me a good confidence and experience at an early stage. Like, okay, let's see what else we can do.
yeah, yeah. During that time, right? So during your time in LA, did you have any moments where either you met someone or someone just really took some time to either groom you or just really kind of give you some tips of the game and like what to do and that sort of thing? Because you moved there at a younger age, right? So was there anyone in particular that you felt like kind of made an impact on you while you were there?
Yeah, again, she was everything to me. She's the reason why I went there. My manager, Lito Richardson. Lito Richardson, she was a lawyer and now a talent manager slash producer. And another thing that kind of fit in my timeline of being there for the right reason. I was in Virginia in our family trip after my father's passing. We took a trip to Miami, and we were there at the hotel. Long story short, we hear that like someone like Vivica Fox and Regina King, actresses of I think Independence Day and like Kill Bill, just kind of
Yeah.
came out. We're
Hmm.
doing a photo shoot there, and so we see them and we're like, wow, beautiful. I mean, stunning. And they come into the pool afterwards with their group and their entourage, and we're over here and with my brother-in-law, my brother, and my brother-in-law, like he's not starstruck, but he's just a fun, awesome, loving guy. So he just
Yeah.
approaches to him. Hey, love your work. Great movie, by the way. Awesome, beautiful. How great is this hotel? And he's such a great salesman. So we have like a small talk. And remember clearly Vivica was like, oh, that's great. So what's going on? How's everything with you? And then Ralph, he broke the ice and he was like, well, we're doing all right, but my brother-in-law, he's an actor. You got to meet him. And I'm like, I did like student films, short films, a couple of PSAs, like this DC, like I didn't do anything. And I was like, and like he broke the ice.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh no, I'm just starting, yada yada. We start talking. And then she was like, well, listen, if you're ever really serious about that, you need to LA. She meet my manager. And I was like, Vivica's manager, Vivica Fox's manager. And I was like, I'd be honored.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget the picture. We're all in this pool having frozen mojitos. And she is on this blue raft and she paddles her way as Vivica calls her name. And she paddles her way in the middle of us. And then me and Lita just kind of connect and talk about life, family, parents, culture, work, everything. And we just
Yeah.
like kind of just become instant friends. And like 45 minutes later, everyone's gone, just me and her. And she was like, "You definitely got something going for you, and I think you got a good, good straight head on you right now, and I think you do a lot of good work in LA if you're serious. Plus, especially now that there's a little Latin buzz coming out with the J Lo and
Yeah.
I think it was like a Ricky Martin, Enrique Iglesias phase. I mean, again, this is late '90s, early 2000s,
Yeah. Yeah.
and she gave me her card.
Wow.
So for 2.5 years, I wasn't keeping in contact with her before I made the move, proving to her that I took it seriously. So she was the voice for majority of my time to like just turn to towards difficult situations or feedback or criticism or um, you know how to be more professional. What do you recommend? So she was just everything, the source of everything for me for the longest time until I felt confident enough to like, all right, go show it, go do it.
Yeah.
And so to this day, I'll ever forever be grateful for that interaction and icebreaker from my brother-in-law and for her guidance from the very beginning because she was the only person I knew when I went there.
Yeah, that is an awesome story. I love it. First, you got to give a shout out to your brother-in-law for just being that guy, right? It's like, all right, I'm just gonna go over here.
Yeah,
I'm not starstruck or anything. Hey, how you doing? Type thing. Because so many people are so afraid, like, oh, they see someone, they're like, oh, I'm just gonna stay over here and like maybe they'll look this way and I'll wave or something. But so I love that. I love that he just said, hey, let's just take
yeah.
a stab at it. And then you were able to meet her manager, and so that is a phenomenal story, and definitely plays a role in kind of what happened to you, right? Once you actually made that commitment and moved to LA, like so to have her in your corner, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Doing that. So awesome. So okay, so we know you had a good time in LA. We know you said 15, 16 years in LA.
Mhm.
Doing the Hollywood things, being extremely successful there. Um, Tell us a little bit more about this move to Florida and this traumatic accident. Tell us kind of where you were, how did you get there, and how did this accident happen?
Um, yeah, that no, that was the toughest transition in my life.
Yeah.
I had an established work and career in LA. I had 16 years. My second family has some close friends that I made and met and stuck with for so long. And I remember telling my mom in her early 70s, when you're ready to retire, let me know, and I'm going to be there to help out. Take a break and wherever you want, I want to make sure you're taken care of. And so she was like, "Well, I'm going to retire soon, and I would love to move to Florida, Broward County, near the grandkids, where my sister and my brother-in-law end up moving here way back, during probably half my stay in LA." I was like, "That makes sense. Three little grandkids. My older brother is working, doing his thing. I'm in Los Angeles. She's the only one in Virginia." And so I was like, "All right, that's the plan." And I'll never forget one day I'm on a commercial set and she's visiting my sister to check out the area, and she had like bad knees, and her knees flared up, and they had to like carry her to the hospital to get it drained, or the doctor's office to get it drained. And something clicked on my mind at that time on set where I was like, I've been here for so long, and I would go back maybe 3 or 4 weeks of the year, but I was very loyal to my work. And I was like, I can't just help her with the retirement and then just come back to be selfish again. knowing that she needs a knee replacement. She's going to need help. My sister's got 3 kids. My brother was the East Coast the whole time. I can't just quickly do something like that. So it's something just shifted where I was like, I need to take a break and be there until everything's good. The new home is settled. She's got her like new lifestyle. Her knees are good. So I packed all my stuff in my car in literally 3 weeks. And I was in Manhattan Beach at the time. And I drove to Florida. And she knew I was coming, but she didn't know I was really staying like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, don't worry, my work will be there.
Yeah.
It's more important. And it's ironic that my father's loss is what got me to LA, but my mom, who's always been our rock, and she would never say, I need your help. She's too old school. But
Yeah.
she's an amazing woman, an amazing mom, where I was like, you don't have to. I'm staying.
Yeah.
And so we got a place neighborhood across from my sister's house. So we were nearby. And then I was kind of staying in, kind of getting used to the area, being more involved as a family man, as an uncle, and everything else. And then the pandemic happened.
Yeah. Mm.
And I was like, my goodness, thank God. I was like, I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah.
She was terrified and just kind of, everyone above 70 got like this
Yeah.
fragile, yeah. And I just took on everything. We all were like, in the beginning stages of the pandemic, just kind of freaking out, washing our groceries and not touching anyone for months, and just was terrifying. And
Yeah.
so I was still like on this adrenaline rush slash kind of savior attitude of just left LA, get the house, get this pandemic, I'll take on. And I just kept on pushing myself
Yeah.
and never really ever checking in with myself,
Yeah.
never actually asking or requesting, I could use some help. This is
Mhm.
overwhelming. I
Mhm.
think I can handle more. And I just kept on just doing things. And one Tuesday afternoon, August 25th, I just go out for a long bike ride because I usually use my exercise and fitness as my stress releaser. And it was my first summer in Florida, as you're famously known to be very humid.
Yes.
And I bike like 20, 25 miles, and I come back and, I have my protein shake, and I thought I'm hydrated enough. But that afternoon, I got this warm sensation and I fainted in my backyard patio. Out of nowhere, just fainted out of dehydration, which is what I thought at first. But later I found out through my psychologist, no, you pretty much eruptively changed your life and just been on like cruise control without checking in with yourself, just doing what you thought you needed to do, and you never asked for help. And I was like, you're right. I can't deny that. You're right. But us stubborn Latins were like, no, I can do it. No worries.
Yeah.
And so when I fainted, I hit a very freak of an accident spot where I hit my right temple, a flower pot in my backyard patio, my mom's garden, and I was unconscious for like 2.5, 3 minutes.
Mm.
And my brother and my brother and his girlfriend, but now my sister-in-law, she's an amazing, amazing sister-in-law, were there at the time, um, trying to wake me up and
Yeah.
freaking out on the call of 911. And during those 2, 3 minutes, I was floating. I was going towards a light. I was in peace. I remember just like I was like floating like chest first, legs and arms just dangling. And I was just kind of like, I'll never forget it, but forever. And he woke me up and he was so confused and shocked of a calm face I had. And
Mm.
he was freaking out and he told me what happened. And so he was like, let's get you up. And that's when the other side of the light kicked in, we'll call it hell. And I couldn't feel anything under my neck.
Mm.
And so later that day, when I got taken to the hospital, Broward Health North Hospital, they diagnosed me with a C2 deep contusion, very similar to the Christopher Reeves injury of his fall from the horse accident. That I basically hit the cervical spot under my skull. And that's a very life or death scenario because it's shut down my central nervous system. Everything is compromised.
Every.
And it was terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me stop you there for a second. Because we are all, going through life day to day, and lots of times people don't stop to say, have I taken on too much, right? Have I checked in with myself? So you fainted because you thought you had gone on a bike ride and wasn't hydrated enough, but really mentally, you had taken on so much by making this drastic move across the country, right? Changing your everyday routine that you've been doing for the last 16 years. And then just kept piling on, right? Mom needs this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna be uncle, I'm gonna do this, and not taking that moment to say, okay, let me, let me take some time for me. So I just want to take this moment to, for those that are listening that are go-getters, and myself included, right? I mean, that we sometimes we let life like just take us away, right? And we just go day to day and we keep piling on and we keep piling on and we keep piling on. We have to take a moment. We have to take a moment for ourselves. We have to take a moment just to check in. How am I? What am I feeling? What do I need? Right? And I think that's such a key question because often we don't ask it of ourselves. We're constantly asking it of others. And so I just wanted to take a moment to kind of, point that out for you and for the listeners as well. But, thank you for jumping into this story and giving these details on how it happened. I know we're gonna talk a little bit more about what it did, but go ahead. What you gonna say?
No, I love that you point that out because it's so true that, prior to all that was going on in that transition, it was also 15, 16 years in a very strenuous career path of like hustle, grind, prove, freelance, job to job, push of I'm not satisfied until something's done and, I'm on the top.
Hmm.
And so that's all I knew.
Yeah.
And so something I've learned and valued the most within the mental health aspect of coaching and becoming a coach, being a patient, is that you got to have those high-end challenges, but you better reward yourself and not just for the final result or the only A plus hundreds of the tests results,
Yeah.
the effort.
Yeah.
And the rewards got to be moments of just like, again, a peaceful, spiritual, meditational environment, nature, like something small. It doesn't have to be big celebrations, but reward that you're choosing to challenge yourself, reward to choose that you are trying to better yourself.
Hmm.
Because that's only going to ignite more strength and
Yeah.
focusness on your push.
Yeah.
Don't wait until something's done to celebrate because that's not the success. It's your growth. It's the
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah.
And so I only knew, until I get nominated or big paycheck or I own my own TV show, I'm not celebrating acting. So I brought that push, which was unhealthy and unsustainable,
Yeah.
plus the transition. No wonder. And I had too much pride to ask for help. And I was
Yeah.
like, now I'm helpless, literally, physically. And
Mm.
the help I received only made me stronger than ever because
Yeah.
you realize it's empowering to admit you need help, or you could use some guidance or support on something that you're trying to take on.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go to the moment where you've had this accident. They've given you this diagnosis and you're now trying to process this, right? Your family's there, you're all trying to process that you were literally paralyzed from the neck down, right?
Yes. Um, the first 10 days I was in the ICU because my blood pressure, my central nervous system, everything was just down and
Yeah.
kind of kept me alive, basically. Um, that was just terrifying. I didn't have any actual logical thought. I was just shocked, defeated, embarrassed, uh, and just kind of like, and this is 2020.
Yeah.
And you're like, what just happened in my life? I didn't know how to process it. And so the only thing I did know, which I learned was wrong at this specific situation, was, well, do what you did with LA. Get to work.
Mm,
Get to work.
mm,
When a therapist says do something, do it times 10.
mm.
Discipline, work ethic, strength, power through, get through, man up, man up. And I did that until a point where nothing was really working. But they loved my commitment, they loved the enthusiasm, they loved my discipline to you. I'm not gonna like not. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it until you tell me to stop doing it because
Right,
I all I knew.
right.
And so nothing was really working until like my right toe started moving, and that really gave me some inspiration. Like, okay, I want to keep on going. I want to go, 0 to 100.
Yep.
And it kind of it didn't work. It didn't work. This was a neurological thing. This
Mm,
wasn't a muscle thing. And it was still very frustrating to figure out what it was because all I knew how to do was to fight back with anger, adrenaline, and aggression, because that's kind of how I did it after my father's passing.
yeah.
And I got results from it. So I was like, why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it didn't work. And I'll never forget, it was 3 weeks into it. I'm getting out of the trauma center, going into the rehab center, and my physical therapist, I also had psychologists, meetings every other day to kind of keep these things, you know, somehow centered. And she would remind me, she's like, you can't fight through this. You can't muscle through this. You
Yeah.
can't just push through this. You can't heal aggressive. You can't heal angry. You can't heal fear.
Yes.
And I understand it's very understandable, but this is a neurological thing.
Yeah.
You need to accept it. And I feel like you're fighting it.
Mm,
That's all I knew. And I still kept on like trying to find that balance of accepting it. But then every time I accepted it, all I would do was cry.
yeah. Yeah.
I was numbing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I still didn't know how to fully commit. And then it was my physical therapist, good friend till this day, Douglas. My first day with him at the rehab center. And so everyone kind of always said he had the Christopher Reeves injury, but I never really saw it in the sense of like on my chart or necessarily knew how close. They're just
Yeah.
saying you have a chance to move. We just don't know when or where. We just need to wait it out, and then really commit. And so Douglas, I'm literally taking a nap before my first session with him, and he's leaned up against my room window with my chart, and he was like, Andres, you have a very interesting chart here, a very interesting diagnosis. I was like, my name is Douglas. And I was like, Douglas, I've heard such great things about you. He's a very militant, tough therapist. And I was like, bring it on.
Yeah.
Challenge, accept. Yes,
Yeah.
that's me. And so I was like, you tell me what to do, and I'm going to do it times 10. He was like, oh, I heard about you. Very disciplined, very enthusiastic, very committed to the situation. But before we get to this, we're going to have to bow our heads down, have a little prayer, and you're going to have to accept how blessed you are to be in this position.
Mm, wow.
And I gave him the biggest like FU's death stare. I was like, I will do everything you
Yes.
say. I'll pray because I love my faith. But to admit I'm blessed,
Mm,
that's something I didn't accept.
yeah. Yeah.
Blessed for this. And
Mm,
so he saw that look and he's like, oh, I don't guess anyone no one's really showed you your chart, but I will. I'm gonna show you your chart. Full face, and he's like, you see that crack under your skull, not your neck, under your skull, your C2? You're less than a centimeter away from being a vegetable. Somewhere, I don't know who above gave you less than a centimeter away of hope
wow.
to potentially recover, and how far you recover is based on you.
Wow.
The C2s, C1s are breaks, the most fragile spot of the spinal cord and the most dangerous spot
Yeah.
of the spinal cord. And you got the C2 crack, 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 crack right there. For some reason, that is a blessing.
Mm,
Something in my system just started to melt the anger and I cried like for like 10 minutes straight. To put it like that. Like he humbled me and also killed my ego within
Yeah.
that little centimeter.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
got to work. We
Yeah.
got to work, and that first day, we go to the parallel bar, have this new attitude of like feeling blessed. Bring me up, let's see what I could do. And they bring me up. I'm like 6'2", 220. So I got 3 therapists on helping me up. My arms are noodles, my legs are noodles. They pull me up to the parallel bars, and I can't even still take one step. I can't even grab the parallel bar. I can't even do anything. And so like my spirit of all right, new me, I'm blessed, still couldn't do it. And I couldn't do anything that day. So they put me back on the bed for doing more in-bed therapy exercises, stretches, and all this stuff. That night, I did something mentally to like just find whatever I thought of that was egotistical or stubborn in my head, and I like just did some surgical processing, procedure of my mind saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Like I just really buried my ego and just like apologized for everything in my life, apologized for anything I've wrongly done. And I was like, just please, anything. I'm here to help my mom. I'm here to help her. And now this, like, I went as far as you could say as a confession
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
possible in the middle of the night. That next day, they brought me to the parallel bars and I walked 20 steps.
Wow. The next day.
Next day, I
Wow.
walked 10 there, 10 back. The whole PT department started applauding me. Douglas was shocked. I was like, bring it on, let's go. But I'm going to take it step by step and not just overdo anything. And it was the start of, they said, of a miracle of a recovery for the
Wow.
time frame and the time they expected.
How powerful is the brain, the mind, the mental capacity that you have literally changed in one day for you when you decided to let it go. I'm letting it go. I'm letting go the ego, all of those things. I'm here. I'm giving it my all. You went from not being able to do anything to 24 hours later, taking 20 steps. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Change their mindset, go into your confession, your prayers, or whatever that is, right? And look what you're able to do. So this is thank you again. I mean, I know we're enjoying the story for sure. I do want to take a moment to figure out or even ask you to share with the listeners. You were a very successful actor. You came to help your mother. You had this accident. You're in recovery, that sort of thing. How did you land on coaching? How did you get to a point where you wanted to coach others? Where did that come from?
It was that afternoon after walking 20 steps. That was the only thing. That was the only thing working or moving was my feet sliding, baby steps. It wasn't actual like marching steps. It was baby steps. My
Mhm.
arms weren't moving yet. My hands weren't moving yet. So I had everyone still doing everything for me, dressing me, feeding me, everything. But I knew my legs were finally under me. And so that afternoon, the PT director, Genevieve, comes to my room. And so she was like, I just got the results of a reported session for me from Douglas, and I didn't believe it. I needed to come see you. And who are you? This isn't normal. What's your story? What's the process? What are you doing differently that others aren't? Because most trauma patients aren't as motivated,
Yeah,
for one, but we know
yeah.
that you are, but this jump is not normal.
Mhm.
And I kind of told her what I just shared with this, but in a very brief story, I was like, I buried my ego.
Yeah.
I finally accepted it. And I accepted it at the lowest point of my life, thinking only uphill from here, but you have to kind of get there spiritually, mentally, emotionally. And she was just like, um, okay, I have two asks for you if you're interested. And I was like, sure. She was like, a lot of trauma patients on this floor need to hear that. Would you be open to sharing just your story, talking to them? Um, and I was like, yeah, I'd be honored. I'm not talking to anyone. There's
Yeah.
barely any invitations. No
Yeah.
2020
Yeah.
September, no vaccinations. Can't watch TV all day. I can't touch my phone.
Right.
Can't switch pages on a book. You know how
Yep.
many, you know how long you are in your thoughts when you can't move your arms in a pandemic, you can't move your body. Like, you know
That's
how many thoughts you are, and you know how slow you get to a point of being in the moment. Like I
yeah.
was all matrixed out, where everything just slowed down because you had to keep your mind to not go crazy,
Yeah.
knowing that everyone else is moving faster than you, and you just need to kind of like pull back and then
Yeah.
just be in your own little world. So I was like, yeah, I would love to talk to anyone. Yeah, everyone. I mean, I love the nurses, I love them, but so they would wheel me into different trauma patients. And little did I know, I was motivating them and kind of coaching them through their own personal trauma.
Wow.
And I fell in love with it. It was like the stage of acting, but with my own words,
Yeah.
for the best movie of my life.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, there's something here. And I was very, always kind of positive person and definitely outgoing as an actor, but this felt more fulfilling than any other role ever. And then she goes, I have a second request, if you don't mind. And I was like, what's that? She goes like, do you mind if we market your story?
Mm.
Because what you've done from LA to this is quite unique. And I think it might bring some inspiration to others outside the hospital.
Yeah.
I was like, anything you need, Genevieve. And
Yeah.
so we got the local news and a few other channels to come interview me on my discharge 31 days in afterwards. And that kind of sparked some momentum.
Yeah.
And so a friend of mine before all this, he's a very well-known international coach. That's where it's like my brand is international because he's one of the top coaches in Europe, one of the best in France, Alexander Cormont, French relationship expert. He's been doing it for 15, 16 years now. And he recruited me.
Yeah.
He was like, you got something I think that a lot of people got to hear and
Yeah.
learn from.
Mhm.
I have the platform and the training and the following to like where you don't feel like you have to start from the bottom of, where do I begin? He kind of became my leader for
Yeah.
LA managing. And all right, hold on. My two careers in my life, I get Vivica Fox's manager guiding me to Los Angeles. And then now to my coaching after going through this whole trauma experience. Now I have one of the top coaches in Europe say, I was like, that's just all right. I'm blessed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that I started coaching a month after my discharge, and
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. That is amazing. So thank you. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for sharing. And can I just say thank you for taking on the challenge or just taking on the assignment of being the coach for those other trauma patients, right? Because one thing I love about coaching and people having, I'm a huge advocate for those who have a coach, no matter what you're going through. But definitely those that are in a traumatic situation or really dealing with their world was completely, turned upside down, and trying to transition out of that or just trying to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So it could be some very trying times when you are, when you don't have the hope and your mind isn't there. And like you said, I mean, I just can't, I was going crazy in 2020 and I had my arms and legs and all of that. So I can't even imagine having to just lay there, right? You can't scroll on your phone,
oh
can't
man,
read a book,
yeah,
you're just laying there in your own thoughts. And that could have gone either way, really, right? I mean, it really could have taken a turn for the worse. So thank you for sharing that as well. So Before we wrap it up here, I know we did almost a full hour here. I love this. Oh,
You,
go
you,
ahead.
you,
Go
you
ahead. Sorry.
you remi- again, that note you just said, which is so important for any trauma survivors or trauma patients or anyone who's gone through any, even emotional or mental trauma, which we've all suffered something from at least 2020, is that what I've learned from my psychologist at the hospital, which I still use to my practicing and my coaching, is that when you're going through something as extreme as whatever it is that you have, there's no more or less darker than lighter. Whatever's extreme for you.
Yeah.
It could be transitions through careers. It could be getting COVID. It could be, financial whatever it is. Something that's heavy for you is heavy for you. Simplify and purify your choices.
Mm.
Simplify and purify your choices. Keep your foundation, keep your centered world simple, and just kind of paddle through these waves. Don't try to rush through. You can take breaks, but you never give up.
Yeah.
And one thing that she told me was that you need to keep your world here.
Mm.
Your world is different from other worlds right now. You can't compare, compete, or relate to anything else. It's going to frustrate you.
Yeah.
You haven't processed this enough where you might want to prove or show or share.
Yeah.
Keep this on but have a circle of loved ones and friends and supporters, and keep that simple and pure with that, because you're going to find some level of confidence where you feel like you don't have any. You're going to find power when you're powerless, and keeping things to kind of just push through these tough times, just crawl through this right now. Like when it's a tough day, just get through it and drive safe and just go to bed. You know what I mean? Don't try to make emotional decisions. Don't try to make permanent decisions. Just push through, because eventually there will be the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I know we're almost out of time, but I do want to take a second to give you an opportunity to talk about what are you doing today? I mean, that, you're almost 4 years, right? Post this trauma, this accident or whatever. What's happening in your world today?
So my main focus is obviously life and relationship coaching. Clients all over the country and all over the world. That's my main ultimate focus. But I recently just got my certification in executive corporate leadership coaching, and I was honored to kind of find this inspiration to go into that world, because one of my current clients, long story short, she's a lawyer and loves the work that I've been doing for her for life and relationship coaching. And she offered me an opportunity to be part of the American Bar Association's article on the national platform of their website. And their magazine called ATB, After the Bar Digital Magazine for lawyers all over the country. They were looking at personal development in the working world, and they asked me if I would be interested to write something. And I was very honored and not intimidated. I was like, lawyers.
A little
Okay,
bit.
I could talk about like trauma and injuries and life and relationship goals. Whoa. And so I was overwhelmed, but I focused on what I knew, and it was, EQ. And I was like, I'm gonna write about intelligence. And so they loved it, published it, and it went national. And so that sparked my direction to get onto this new certification, executive coaching. So my next challenge and pathway is to get into more executive coaching, become a speaker, write my book, and then TED Talk. And so my main thing are still going to go towards something that's still challenging, to evolve my coaching to a different platform, but as my main focus is life and relationship.
Awesome. Thank you. And how can they find you if they're interested in life and relationship coaching? How can they find you?
It would be coachingwithandres.com, and everything there on the homepage has all my other link trees. It has like a toolbar to my Instagram, my TikTok, YouTube. And so coachingwithandres.com, on the homepage, it has everything you need there. It has the whole story, has all the things I've been associated with, qualifications, and again, so this is my calling. And again, I'm very honored to share this, and thank you for having me on. So I mean, this has been great.
No, this is amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much. I had the opportunity to be in class with Andres, and we had an opportunity that we were partnered together for an assignment. and I heard his story, and I was immediately inspired. Immediately inspired just because you think you've gone through some things in life, right? You think you've had some challenges, and when you hear how someone else has literally, pushed through the adversities, pushed through the physical and mental challenges of a traumatic experience, and they're on the other side coaching and encouraging and being an inspiration for others. And so immediately I was just inspired by your story, and definitely love that we had a chance to cross paths in our course there, and be partnered together on that assignment. So I thank you for sure. And I know we'll be in touch soon, but definitely thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for sharing your experiences, your DC and Northern Virginia, roots, came all the way to LA. And y'all got to catch him on the soap operas. Go back and look some reruns, look for The Officer, so you can see him on there. But thanks again. I really appreciate you taking the time here, and sharing the story and just being an inspiration and motivation for all of us. So thank you so much. And guys, this is Life Transitions Radio Talk Show with yours truly, Coach Latoya, here on WDRB Media, the voice of the community. Thank you all for listening today. I hope you have a great Saturday, and we will see you next week.